Hello everyone, and welcome to Classic Gaming Today, where we take a look at the gaming experiences of the past through the eyes...
Are we in? We're in? Hello everyone, and welcome to Retro Gaming in Modern Times, where we relive the games we love from the past through the lens of today. I am Sam, your host and superior brother, and on this episode we will be exploring the classic hit Dynasty Warriors 2, a 3D beat-em-up action combat title developed by Omega Force and published by Koei for the Sony PlayStation 2 in the year 2000. While this game was reviewed in episode 138 of our sister podcast, Classic Gaming Today, we decided that we needed to give it a look ourselves. And so with that...
Hello again, Tony. It's Ricky. Since we last spoke, I thought things would improve, but you have disappointed me. I've checked my list, I've checked it twice, and you've been a naughty, naughty boy, Tony. Tricking these naive gamers into playing shitty games. Well, I have a little gift for you. They say history is written by the winners, and I am a winner, Tony. A grand champion. And here's my history. So, hello everyone, and welcome to the real Classic Gaming Today. I'll let my minions take it from here.
Hey, listen!
Hello everyone, and welcome to Classic Gaming Today, where we take a look at the gaming experience of the past through the eyes of the present. I'm your host, Steve, and today we are going to look at The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time, an action-adventure title developed and published by Nintendo, released in 1998 for the Nintendo 64 console. We're going to talk about that game in just a couple of minutes, but first, as is usual, just a little bit of housekeeping up front. This is episode number 72. I'm excited to be here, but I have to admit, today's topic is going to require us to have a very difficult conversation. With that out of the way, let's start talking about the game of the day. That is The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time. Now, before we can talk about Ocarina, we gotta talk about the history. We have to look at the context. We know that in the 90s, Shigeru Miyamoto had two buckets of ideas: Mario ideas and Zelda ideas. Well, folks, looking back, it is painfully obvious that the Mario bucket got the actual game design and the Zelda bucket got the bad experiments. The game was originally designed for the 64DD disk drive. When that failed, they had to butcher the game to fit into a standard cartridge. We often marvel at how designers could fit a bunch of code and a whole game on 32 megabytes. But let's be honest. That is not enough space. They compromised the vision to fit it on a plastic cartridge, and the result is a hollow shell of what it was promised. So, let's move on to our review section. We'll take a look at the graphics, the sound, the narrative, and the gameplay, and ask, how does it hold up today? First, the graphics. We are told this is a fully realized 3D world. I would disagree. It is a muddy, barren wasteland. Because of the cartridge limitations, the textures are blurry smears. The frame rate is a disaster, often dipping below 20 frames per second. The famous fog isn't atmosphere. It's a curtain hiding the fact that the console can't render anything more than 10 feet away. Now, let's talk about the gameplay. We have to talk a little bit about Z targeting. We were told this solved 3D movement. In reality, Z targeting is an admission of failure. The camera is so broken that the only way to play is to lock your view onto an enemy and strafe in circles. It removes player agency. It turns combat into a boring automated process of holding a button and waiting. And then there's the movement in the open world. People talk about the scale of Hyrule Field, but they forget to mention how painfully slow it is to traverse. Running is so sluggish that you are forced to spend the entire game rolling on the ground just to move slightly faster. It looks ridiculous, and it feels like a chore just to get from point A to point B. Then there's the pacing. The game actively hates your time. Between the unskippable ramblings of the owl and the constant pestering of Navi, hey, listen, the fairy, it is a test of patience. And the menus? The water temple requires you to pause, scroll, equip boots, unpause, walk, pause, scroll, unequip boots, over and over again. It is the worst UI design in Nintendo history. Finally, the sound. Koji Kondo is talented, but the ocarina mechanic is a gimmick that stops the game dead in its tracks. You aren't adventuring. You are playing Simon Says with a flute just to open a door. It breaks the flow and ruins the immersion. So, we do all that to reach a verdict. As you know, we assign each game to one of several categories. At the very top, we have the pantheon of classic gaming. Below that, the golden oldies. Then, our mediocre mentions. And finally, beyond the mediocre mentions, we reach the footnotes. These are the games that are best left in the annals of history. Games that I cannot recommend anyone play today because they're simply broken or have aged terribly. So, where does The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time land? I know this is going to hurt to hear, but looking at the unplayable frame rate, the broken camera, the tedious menus, and the empty world, I have no choice. I am assigning The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time to the footnotes. This game is a relic. It's a fossil. It is interesting to read about in a history book, but actually playing it today is a miserable experience. Do yourself a favor, keep your memories intact, and do not boot this up. It belongs in a museum, not in your console. And with that, that is The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time. I'm your host, Steve, and this has been Classic Gaming Today.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Classic Gaming Today, where we take a look at the games of the past through the eyes of a delusional optimist. Today, we're going to look at Toonstruck, a third-person point and click and keep clicking adventure developed by first game we ever developed studios and published by We're All Virgins Entertainment back in 1996 for the Microsoft DOS platform. I'm your host, CGB. You can reach me at I never met a game I didn't like at fmv.com. You can also reach me out on Twitter. My handle is, if you're enjoying this game, you're not doing it right. And out on Discord, but I wouldn't bother going on there. They're just a bunch of haters. I have an announcement to make. Starting in January, we'll be launching our Patreon. I'm really excited about that, and I'm sure it will all work out. And I can't wait to see the love and respect for my patrons. Now first, I want to talk about the anatomy of an episode. During this episode, we will go over the history of the game, and then we will do a pseudo-review. I'm not really sure what that means, but someone called my reviews that, and I'm pretty sure it's a compliment. Finally, we will rank the game. First, we have our Pantheon. This means that the game is great no matter what others say. Just because haters might say the graphics are bad, the game glitches, there are plot holes, it's too hard, it's too easy, the title is an oxymoron. These are the games that go on my Pantheon. We also have our Pantheon of classic gaming for games not quite fitting into Pantheon, and for all other games, we have our Pantheon. On to our game of the day. Toonstruck is a point-and-click square-to-the-nth power adventure game that came out way back in 1996. Before we can get to that, though, we have to take a look back at the point-and-click adventure genre. For those of you who don't know, point-and-click adventures are one of my favorite types of games. I just love how you can get stuck for hours trying to figure out the mindset of some nerd in the 80s. My forehead now has a metal plate fused into my skull because I bashed it on my keyboard for years as a child. As you know, there were two main companies making point-and-click adventure games during this period. First, Sierra Games, which you know me and my still forehead love, and LucasArts, which my, and I'll put this in quote marks, normal brother liked. Apparently, he isn't a masochist. Let's move on to Virgin Interactive. After the success of Seventh Guest, Virgin was looking to see how they could tank their gaming arm. They had this ingenious idea. They had two of their employees form their own company and create the studio Trilobite. I think it was so that their shareholders couldn't blame them for their inevitably tanking stock. While thinking of a game, one of the game designers had an idea. How about a game that combined the frustration of Sierra with the cartoon style of LucasArts? I don't know about you, but what makes a bad smell great? Adding another strong smell like perfume to make a super smell that couldn't be better. So what would the idea be? A super original idea to have a human go into a cartoon world. Now wait, you're thinking, wasn't this just a plot of Roger Rabbit? Well, no, it's totally different because here it is a human in a toon world rather than a toon in a human world. So as you can see, they're not even 1% related. Early versions of the game had the main character as a boy in Toonland, where this world was slowly being drained of its color. Funny enough, much like those who played it later would be drained of their will to live. Realizing the game was too much like Roger Rabbit, they changed the main character to our cartoonist, played by Christopher Lloyd. This change involved the creators wanting the game to be more adult. They wanted people to be shocked by the game's humor, and they succeeded in this as the game is nothing but a shocking experience. They didn't just want this to feel like a game. They wanted it to be an interactive cartoon. And I can say after playing it, it did not feel like a game. Yet another win for the studio. To further tank the studio, they decided to spend years and millions of dollars drawing 11,000 images by hand, rather than use advanced technology available. Almost the entire game is effectively a cartoon and not a game. Much like the look on his face, the main character was named Drew Blank, a cartoon writer experiencing writer's block. Get it? Drew Blank? Writer's block? Drew Blank? Yeah. How do they come up with this stuff? Interestingly, Christopher Lloyd's costume and overall style were drawn so that when he was walking around, he'd be leaning back in slow-mo as if he was dodging a bullet. I've been told this is the actual inspiration for The Matrix. Did you know the jacket has no buttons in the game? Probably not, because how would anyone notice that on a tiny character on a screen with 90 graphics? The studio then sent out a call and got lots of famous actors, just like Homer Simpson, to see if they wanted to be involved in taking their careers as well. After wasting millions of dollars taping any idea they could think of with Christopher Lloyd and a green screen, Virgin said they had finally spent enough to tank the studio and told them to cut the game in half. Eventually, all the elements would come together and release in late October 1996, a full year after it was scheduled to be released and millions of dollars over budget. Many paid critics praised the game, and most people agreed it was an experience. To continue their mission, Virgin didn't properly market the game, and thankfully for Virgin and gamers, only 150 copies were sold. The story doesn't end here, though, as Keith Aram, the composer of the game, has been working for the last 15 years to release a remastered version of the game, with expected sales of 1. And guess who that'll be? We are now going to shift to what it feels like to play the game today, as opposed to when it was released 30 years ago. Generally speaking, Toonstruck is pretty much a prototypical, hateful, third-person point-and-click adventure. You go around the world pointing and clicking, and clicking and pointing, and then pointing and clicking. The game is basically divided into 2 parts, but I'm not going to get into any spoilers, as I wouldn't want to save you from this game. What is interesting about this game is that you are in a cartoon and cartoon logic applies. So normally you only have to deal with the insane logic of What's-Her-Face from Sierra Games, but now you have to deal with that same logic, but then translate that logic into cartoon logic. For instance, if you see, let's say there's a machine that says 25 cents, and inside is an item you need. And let's say in the next screen over is a raccoon with a bag of quarters that is asking for some chips. And let's say these chips are in the next screen over from that. So after 3 hours and 8,000 clicks later, you get the chips, get the bag of quarters from the raccoon, and you put a quarter in the machine and nothing. It won't work. Because what you were supposed to do is get a club to hit a record that plays a song for 25 seconds to open it up. Don't you just love games that lead you astray for hours just to throw it in your face? Next up, we have Christopher Lloyd. Oh boy. The over-the-top goodness of his acting is amazing. Christopher Lloyd's acting seemed like an SNL skit about a small-town actor at an audition in Hollywood where he had the skills of a terrible singer on American Idol who really thought he was good because his mother told him so. Another aspect of the game is you have a constant companion you can interact with. That companion is named Flux Wildly. This is voiced by Dan Castellaneta, which is perfect because this character has the intelligence or lack thereof of Homer Simpson. I think there's about 3 times in the game where he helps you, but more importantly, without him, you might only click 3.2 million times in the game. But with him, you can double that to over 6 million, as you will always click on him to see if he can help you, and about 0.0000001% of the time he will. Oh, Flux, so great. So unhelpful. So to sum up the game, you click, you point, you get stuff to restore the world, cows squirt out some sperm, bunnies threaten you, and you save the day or something. I don't know. I think all is halfway restored as it's half of the game. I did love how this game didn't get you into a dead-end state, though. Otherwise, in Bay fashion, I might have quit and spent time with my wife and kids. Next up, we're going to take a look at the back of the box because I love looking at the back of the box. Back in the 90s, it was the early days of the internet, and you didn't always know if a game was any good, and you didn't have Discord servers with really great Patreons to help you out. So, the back of the box says, blah, blah, blah. Yep, it sold me, as it has a back of the box. Oh, and graphics were graphics, sound was sound, and had some FMV videos, blah, blah. Now, we have some guest reviews on the show. First up, our Austrian friend, ISO. So, ISO, how are you doing today? Yeah. Great. And what did you think of the game? Nar. Thank you, ISO. Next up, we have our friend Luigi Salvatore. Luigi, great to see you. What did you think of this game? This is a freaking game. It's like my balls. This game is worse than the win in Mario Kart 64. Whoa. Luigi, tell me how you really feel. It don't make no sense why I'm here today. I'm working on my course for the next year's Olympics. Ciao. All right, thanks, Luigi. That guy. So, how did we feel about this game? Well, picking from my 4 choices, it is needless to say that this game struck me. And I'll never be the same. So, Toonstruck is our newest member of the Pantheon of Classic Gaming. I hope you all liked my episode on Toonstruck. Our next episode will be on Hysteria Project. Who knows how it'll rank? Until then, remember, sometimes the games of the past are just as garbage as the games of today. Goodbye, everyone. Fucking mouse work.
Hello, Tony. You have some really good friends, I must say. A bit on the trusting side, I suppose, but that's to be expected. I must say I was very surprised when I heard that someone was wanting me to record a review of an old game for you, but I've never been one to turn down such a friendly request. I especially couldn't resist once I realized that the message was intended for that idiot that calls himself Marek, since we've been due a reunion for quite some time, and his communications have allowed me to pinpoint his location. I suppose a brief introduction is in order, although you technically already know who I am. While some people are chased by their past, in Marek's case it's literal. William Riker had Thomas, Solid had Liquid, and Marek, see what I did there, has me. You call him and Marek, so I suppose I can be called Nand Marek. I'm not going to bore you with the details of how we came about, because although I really don't care about boring you, telling the story would bore me, and that just wouldn't do. I digress. Your friends wanted a review of EverQuest, an MMO produced in the late 90s by Variant Interactive and published by Sony Online Entertainment. I understand you liked it quite a bit, and I'm sure the other Marek would have found some way to sugarcoat a review and make it sound like the game was one that had a lot of positives, but maybe just didn't find him at the right time with the right people. Blah, blah, blah. I was there, and I just can't let him abuse your friendships by telling such terrible lies. EverQuest was, and is, a terrible game that managed to flourish because its only real competition was Ultima Online and Meridian 59, the former somehow managing to look worse than Ultima 8 despite interesting gameplay, and the latter being a non-Army Men game by 3DO. Enter EverQuest, which was easily the best-looking MMORPG of the time and was certainly the talk of all the dorks in the dorm rooms prior to its release. My PC rig was more than solid with a brand new Voodoo 3000, although I do recall playing a bit of the early days on an S3 Savage 4 card. None of this mattered, of course, since my dial-up at the time was limited to 28.8 due to the nature of the phone lines in the dorms. I was assured that I was going to get the highest visual fidelity of lag I had ever seen. You might say, that's not the game's fault, and you'd be right. So let's talk about what was the game's fault. Cartography dates back to ancient times, and video games have had maps going all the way back to Adventure on the Atari VCS, but that required paper. Civilization in 1991 had an endgame map, while Might and Magic 4 had auto mapping. EverQuest, well, they didn't think a map was needed. Honestly, they were probably right, since you're just going to spend all of the time running across the zone from the giant train of mobs that would chase you the moment they spotted you and keep chasing you until they died, you died, or you left the zone. Given that most of your time was to be spent running to your corpse to get your equipment back, I'll let you guess what the most likely outcome was. That's okay though, because dying is part of how you learn in these games. You push yourself and earn XP, and eventually you'll gain levels and grow in power. Except, of course, that EverQuest was designed with the masochist in mind. When you died, you lost XP, and maybe even a level, so hours of progress can be undone by dying to a single mob, because one death often means another, and another, and another. Dying is bad, but EverQuest at least gave you options. 14 different ways to meet your inevitable end. Classes generally broke down into 3 major types. Big, dumb melee characters that got killed while swinging a weapon, healers who died very slowly while slapping mobs with a pillow, and offensive spellcasters who died quickly, usually mid-syllable of their last incantation. They did have hybrid classes as well, but that was basically giving you the flexibility to choose how you were going to die. Upon choosing a class, you're ready to embark on your quest. It's right there in the name, after all. Which makes you wonder why the developers of EverQuest decided their groundbreaking MMO didn't really need any quests. Maybe the ever part meant, will you ever find a quest? Okay, that's a lie. They technically existed, but you'd be hard-pressed to tell the difference. When I played, there was no quest log, no indicator that someone even had a quest, and once you got one, no clue where the objectives might be. That was only a minor problem compared to the bigger one. Even if you knew where the quest was supposed to be, there wasn't a map to help you find it anyway. Okay, I can already hear someone squawk. You may be constantly dying. You may be completely lost. You may have no idea what you need to do, but at least you aren't alone. Yeah, you were never alone. That mob you've been slapping with a fly swatter for 15 minutes? Thanks for warming him up for Bilbo Teabaggins and his guildmates, because they're just going to sweep in and take that kill, since mobs didn't lock to the people fighting them. Maybe you'd get lucky and actually land the kill, but don't celebrate yet. Anyone can loot that corpse. Not that many people would want the pathetic junk these mobs dropped anyway. But let's say you do get the loot. Amazing! Now haul those rat whiskers back to town, if you can even find it. Uh-oh, what's that sound? Do I hear a train coming? Choo-choo, mofo, because here comes the mob train. Mr. Level 16 Necromancer barrels down the baby slopes with 12 rats in tow, then feigns death right at your feet. Congratulations, you've been promoted from quester to victim of public transportation. You're welcome. There was a solution to all of this. Join a guild. Join a guild. The very same guilds that have been making your early levels miserable, now you get to be one of them. Suddenly you're the one in the pack, griefing low-level players, camping spawns, and monopolizing bosses like it's your divine right. Which brings us to what EverQuest really was at launch. A toxicity concentrator, distilling every player into worse and worse versions of themselves until they either reached peak toxicity, yum, fled to another game, or their mom finally stopped paying their monthly subscription. Watching people devolve into their base instincts was entertaining in a train wreck sort of way, but actually playing it, not so much. I understand this game sits in your pantheon of classic gaming. If this is the bar for greatness, then maybe I need to start listening to this show, because I can only imagine the kind of evil titles that make that list. There's this little gem, Rise of the Robots, that's a guaranteed shoe-in for... Oh, looks like he's back. Time for me to slip away for now. But don't worry, I'll be around. Huh. I guess I left this thing on. How long has it been transmitting? No, I must have left it on. We really need to do something about the lack of voice there, Boyd. Well, since it's rolling. Hey, the Bay 101. I really appreciate the request. EverQuest is a good game with plenty of positives, I'm sure, but it just wasn't my cup of tea back in the day. I don't think I'll have much more to add. That said, I'll never miss a chance to tell Tony how much I appreciate his work and the effort he puts into the show every week. I hope he and everyone listening has the best holidays and a wonderful new year. Thank you all for a great 2025. And Marek, signing off.
Hello everyone and welcome to Classic Gaming Today. I'm your host ISO, and today we're talking about Little Big Adventure, a piece of shit made in 1994 for pretty much the computer platform and a crappy port made for the PlayStation by Delphine Software, or Adeline Software even. It's going to be abundantly clear that the history portion of this review is going to be pretty average, because I could care less about this game. Spoiler alert. But first, as is usual, I'm here to explain what's going on. I have hijacked the podcast to re-review Little Big Adventure, a game which I believe was wrongfully given a mediocre mention. No, what was it? Golden Oldie. I'm going to cut straight to the chase and start talking about Little Big Adventure, a pseudo 3D isometric action adventure game which, in my eyes, has been given too much grace. The game was created by Frederick Renal, and about all you need to know about the history is that it was made by him. That's all I can remember. But the plot centers around a man named Twinson, an annoying character who has been in prison, probably for good reason. You start off in a prison, and you work your way out of the prison to try and make more mess of the world that you inhabit. You've got some stupid cloak and a stupid ball, and you just run around throwing them at elephants and stuff like that. It just goes on like this, and then you eventually find your annoying girlfriend, who is probably the worst character in all of gaming, and this quote-unquote whimsical adventure continues until you make it to the Temple of Boo, where almost 100% of players will stop playing because it's so infuriating. It is. I cannot stress enough how infuriating this is. That's all you need to know about the plot. Let's move on to the graphics. The graphics are awful. They look awful because they are awful. There is a crappy 3D styling, which is sort of whimsically cartoon, but also not whimsically because it's just so ugly. The effects suck. The particle effects on the ball are crap. Everything about this is just awful. The menus are bad. I don't even like the fonts that they've used. We'll move on to sound and music, which is also equally as bad. The music is grating, and it gets stuck in your head in a bad way because it just makes you want to claw your ears out or jam balls of magic into your ears. It's honestly just terrible. The sound effects are equally bad. The sound of the ball bouncing off the walls and stuff, it's just infuriating. Now we'll go to read the back of the box, which I should have done beforehand. And the back of the box says the award-winning adventure. Who gave this an award? My God. Join Twinson, the hero prophet, on a surreal adventure through the fantastical worlds to discover the legend. Yeah, that doesn't sound that fun. Meet strange beings, solve cryptic clues, and defeat mean bad guys as you guide Twinson to his destiny. A game so captivating, I put that in air quotes in case you couldn't tell, it will become your world. That's the PlayStation version, but it's got a couple of crappy screenshots. You can see Twinson getting his head slammed in a door or something. That looks actually pretty good. Some crappy isometric fields. Nothing to write home about. Bad 3D graphics. Yeah, it doesn't sell me. I wouldn't have bought this. I would have tried to return it. If you can return it, try to. I think that most game shops should still accept refunds on this. But now on to the gameplay and overall feel. So the gameplay in this is terrible on multiple levels because there's multiple different play styles that you can incorporate. There's a few different modes. There's like a stealth mode and an action mode, a running mode, a combat mode. All of them are equally as crap as each other. They just, each one you feel like you should be in a different mode, and then you switch out and then you wish you were back in the other mode, and you can't do certain things. You run too fast, you run into things, and you do damage to yourself. If you go into stealth mode, it makes a really annoying noise. Do 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 do. It's really annoying. there's just not a lot that you can say about this game that is redeeming. I honestly don't know how it got a golden oldie to begin with. It's just, every time I think back on it, it just makes me want to gouge my eyes out and forget the memory of this horrible game. I really don't know what else to say apart from that it should be reclassified as a, what's the worst one? Footnote. It's a footnote, mate. And revisionist history is the correct history in this case. So any complaints can be forwarded to at classicgamingtoday at gmail.com. And oh, what's this? What do you mean that the podcast has been hijacked and blackmailed to make everything a footnote? I would have done that for free. That was my review on Little Big Adventure. I hope you hated it as much as I did. Look forward to seeing you next week when we review something else that I hate. Maybe Little Big Adventure 2. Goodbye, everybody.
What have you done with this? Why are you doing this? Ow. Okay. What's this? If I read this will stop? Okay, I'll do whatever to end this. Hello everyone, and welcome to Classic Gaming Today, where we take a look at the gaming experiences of the past through the eyes. Where's the music? You gotta have the music. Really? A ringtone? You could have just went to, okay, I'm reading. It's not even the main theme. Welcome to Classic Gaming Today, where we take a look at the gaming experiences of the past through the eyes of the present. I'm your host, Filmkid, and today we'll be revisiting the 1995 Square JRPG Chrono Trigger. You know what, guys? Can we kill the annoying ringtone? I really can't concentrate. Appreciate it. Now, before we get to what I think about Chrono Trigger, I need to first talk about why I am revisiting this title. So, back in episode 14, Tony felt this game to be worthy of a spot in the pantheon of classic gaming. In fact, he believed it actually transcends the pantheon. That is very high praise, and I have to say that I, Filmkid, would wholeheartedly disagree. This pile of hot garbage would be the worst of the overrated Square catalog if they didn't crap out Final Fantasy VI. Honestly, I don't even know how they got 6 games. The first one should have been the final nail in Square's coffin, but we'll save that for another episode. Let's get into the history of this tragedy. Back in the year of our Lord, 1992, a so-called Dream Team consisting of Hironobu Sakaguchi, creator of that god-awful Final Fantasy game, Yuri Horii, creator of the equally as bad Enix game Dragon Quest, and Akira Toriyama, who apparently made comic books about some serpent orbs, unfortunately came together and said, we need to make something so bad that not only does it force Square and Enix to become a superpower in awful gaming, but effectively ruin our careers. 3 years later, boom, Chrono Trigger. Now for my authentic appraisal on Chrono Trigger. So let's start with the graphics. How does the game look? Well, yeah, this is not going to work, guys. What do you mean? What do I mean? They're not going to buy it. The graphics are some of the best in the era, and they still look amazing. Now, we got to move on. Trust me. Let's start with my favorite area, the sounds and music. The music of Chrono Trigger just doesn't do it for me. The soundtrack is honestly forgettable. It really lacks depth, and a lot of the tracks are super repetitive. It's as if they slapped a bunch of songs together after forgetting to hit Control S on the keyboard. You gotta remember to save and save often and back your stuff up. As for the sound effects, they are so bad, I don't even want to even talk about it. Moving on to the story. This is a story about time travel, and I absolutely love the idea of time travel. I wish I could travel back in time and stop this game from being made. The story is just too basic, but yet somehow also complicates things with its whatever works to move the story time travel logic. The characters are just not fully developed, which results in an apathy towards most of them. I mean, the character with the most development is a frog named, well, Frog. You couldn't even come up with an actual name Square. And the main protag is, for lack of a better word, mid. First of all, again with the naming creativity, his name is Chrono, without the H. Real clever. For a character that is supposed to represent you, the player, he just doesn't make me care about him. So much so that, and I will give the listeners out there 3 seconds for a spoiler alert. 3, 2, 1, he dies. He actually freaking dies, but you have a chance to kind of bring him back to life if you choose. And I chose not to, because he just sucks as a character. And don't get me started on the main villain, Lavos. You are supposed to hate it because it destroys the world basically across time. That's it. It just destroys. No motive, no monologues about his god complex or mommy issues, just destruction. I need a big bad with a personality, and Lavos is just there, destroying. That's it. And that to me is just absolutely boring. Now, what do I think about the controls? Well, I mean, the game utilizes basic RPG mechanics and navigational controls, so Square really couldn't mess it up. It's literally the best part of the game, and that's not saying much. So, overall, what do I think about Chrono Trigger? Well, like I said earlier, I wish I could hop in the DeLorean, or I guess the Epic, and made sure that this game never saw the light of day. The game looks terrible. The music is not memorable. The story is basic, and the characters are underdeveloped and boring. It's just a bad game, and because of that, Chrono Trigger is our latest inductee into the foot. No. I'm not doing this, guys. Screw this. I'm out of here. This game is Pantheon worthy all day. Cut by classic. Coming to get you, I'm the Dizzle. We need more sunscreen.
God, what? We're back? We're back. Right. So, I'm not so sure what that was. Some sort of gremlin in the audio feed, maybe? But as I was saying before the interruption, Dynasty Warriors 2 is without a doubt deserving of its spot as the newest member in the pantheon of retro gaming. Anyway, that has been our episode on Dynasty Warriors 2. I hope you all enjoyed listening to it as much as I enjoyed creating it. If you'd like to reach out, let me know how I'm doing, provide feedback, comments, suggestions, or just talk about retro games and technology in general, I would love to hear from you. And the best way to reach out is through our Discord server. The link is in the show notes. Discord is the best way to get in touch with me and the rest of the community around this podcast. We have a ton of fun out on Discord, and we even use it as a place to plot and scheme behind our old host's back. I highly encourage you all to check it out. Before we sign off for the week, I do want to send out my biggest happy holidays and Merry Christmas to all of our listeners out there. Goodbye, everyone.
Guys, hey, I'm back. What did I miss?